bill because it passed. The bill passed the House and the Senate, and the President vetoed it. We tried to override the veto, and Congressman Shabbat was one of the few members that supported the President in vetoing the legislation. On the same day that vote took place, the Shabbat office announced that President Bush would be coming into town to raise money for his campaign. And so President Bush came to Hyde Park, and all the millionaires lined up to pad the pockets of Congressman Shabbat for his campaign effort. That's what's paying for all those negative ads on TV right now. I had a little rally right down here in the West End with the kids. And I really think it's a matter of priorities. But I also agree with you about No Child Left Behind, because No Child Left Behind has simply been a huge unfunded mandate on the states. And what we've ended up doing is taking funding away from schools that were helping kids doing a lot of things outside of the classroom. Building self-esteem through the arts, through music, through sports. So much of that has been cut because we're spending so much time teaching to the tests. And the tests have become paramount. So, under No Child Left Behind, we have seen this tremendous emphasis on testing rather than on taking the child as an individual and trying to build them and using the test simply to help us see where the kids are and build them up.
And then we deal, and I believe in deal holistically.
Absolutely.
With the child, the total child. And I don't even know why he would even get in education anyway. That the state continues to handle that. I was confused. I didn't understand his reasoning for getting into it. Because a lot of people lost their jobs because he could have grandmawed a lot of older people that have been in school teaching these children. If the children know you, then they're going to learn. It's not about they can't learn. They can learn if you're taught. Every child can learn if you're taught.
I think what happened in that presidential election is because the economy wasn't the #1 issue at the time, they seized upon education. And whenever the federal government seizes upon education, especially K-12 education, as an important issue, they go way too far. And I agree wholeheartedly with you. It is our constitutional responsibility as state legislators to ensure that we have a well-funded, quality education system in the state of Ohio. That is one of our few constitutional responsibilities as a state legislature. And I agree wholeheartedly that those decisions should be made at the state and local levels. You have a locally elected school board to deal with those issues, and I think parents and school officials know far better than the folks in Washington. I don't want to be voting on K-12 education. Now, should we be putting funds into teacher training? Absolutely.
Exactly.
Should we be putting funding into access to things like Pell Grants for higher education? Absolutely. But should Congress be setting the rules for, kids at a grade school here in Cincinnati? Absolutely not. And that's a real problem. They went far too far. And I think it was the political climate during the last presidential election. And they know every family cares about education. So that's why they seized upon it.
Senator? Representative?
Let me say that.
We're so formal here.
Everyone here, to the citizens who are here, this is the time to ask your political representatives anything that's on your mind.
No, I mean, look here. You've got the 3 Democratic state representatives who represent the city of Cincinnati and your state senator, as well as myself, and I'm running for Congress. We represent you. We represent your interests. And in order for us to do that well, we need to hear from you all the time. And so that's why we're doing this. So as much as I like these guys, I don't really want to hear from them. Yes, Mr. Malley.
Some years ago, when I was in the legislature, I got a call from a woman in Washington, D.C. and she was trying to get me to strengthen the bankruptcy laws in this country. And I listened to her very politely, and then I said this to her. I said, no, I'm not going to vote for that. I'm not going to support it, because what you should be doing is giving credit in a responsible way. You know exactly when a person can afford, based on their debt ratio and based on their income, that they can't afford to do something. If I were a lawyer today, I would sue all of these banks and their executive officers, and I would charge them with premeditated fraud, because they knew what was going to happen. Now we got people losing their homes. I was a kid growing up in the West End, and the worst thing I ever saw was people being evicted from their houses and furniture being put out on the street. So this is very personal to me. I survived the Depression. I never dreamed I'd live to see what's happening now. So if you go to the Congress, I want those people regulated.
But, and you'll get it, because that's what we try to do here in Cincinnati. That's what we've tried to do at the state level. But far too many of these financial institutions are federally regulated. So when we were pushing for those same things, the predatory lending laws in the state of Ohio, we couldn't get anything done at the national level. Let me tell you, this is interesting. The congressman likes to bake, he blames this whole problem on the Community Reinvestment Act, which I find astounding. The Community Reinvestment Act, passed in the 1970s, the Community Reinvestment Act incentivized financial institutions to loan into especially low-income and minority neighborhoods because they had been redlined. There were banks that simply wouldn't write loans in entire neighborhoods, regardless of your ability to pay. They wouldn't loan money into the West End. They wouldn't loan money into Avondale. And so the Community Reinvestment Act passed, saying, you know what, we're going to provide incentives to the financial institutions. You can take tax credits, but we want you loaning in a responsible manner into those neighborhoods. The Community Reinvestment Act has worked. The problem today is the greed on Wall Street. It has nothing to do with Community Reinvestment Act. The folks on Wall Street figured out a way to bundle these mortgages through mortgage-backed securities and sell them and make billions of dollars in profit. They took all the risk away from the people closing the loans and the people that own the homes. All the risk was gone. Now, the homeowner still had a risk, but the person closing the loan didn't have any. They sold it immediately. When that happened, then they started qualifying anybody that could walk in the door. And they started suckering people in. Saying, hey, I've got a great interest rate for you, and how much can you afford to pay? Well, if you can afford to pay $350 a month, I can get you in at this great rate. But what they don't tell you about is that little prepayment penalty that they have if you try to renegotiate the terms of the loan. They don't tell you that after the 3 years, when that teaser rate expires, your interest rate's going to start changing, your mortgage payment's going to go up every 3 months. And that's what people got sucked into. That's exactly what you're talking about. And listen, I called upon the prosecutor, Hamilton County prosecutor, to prosecute that. They show me the one case. You know, Joe Dieters is running around talking about election fraud. Where is the one mortgage fraud case that he's ever prosecuted?
No.
Despite all the foreclosures here in Hamilton County.
And it doesn't become fraud until they try to vote.
We finally have an attorney general in the state of Ohio who understands how important the issue is. But it took a Democrat getting elected attorney general for that to finally happen.